Welcome, everyone. I'm Saori Choulos, the International Business Account Manager with Sacramento MBDA Export Center, operated by the California Asian Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for joining this first of 3 webinars to learn about global contracting opportunities with the Asian Development Bank. Today's focus is on urban development and water management. I want to thank our hosts, Go-Biz, U.S. Commercial Service, Asian Development Bank, and the CalAsian Chamber of Commerce and the Sacramento MBDA Export Center for organizing this important series. As we get started, I want to mention a couple of logistical details. First of all, the webinar is being recorded. All participants are muted upon entry. And you are welcome to submit your questions through the Q&A box, and the Q&A box should be located at the bottom of your screen. Participants also have the opportunity to submit questions upon registration, in which we've received quite a number, so thank you very much. We will have Q&A towards the end of the session and look forward to your questions that you'll submit through the Q&A box, as well as the ones that we've already received during the registration process. We also want your feedback and appreciate your comments during this session. So to provide comments and any feedback, please use the chat box. We will be monitoring that box and we welcome all your feedback. We will also be following up with a survey after this event, and we look forward to your response and all the feedback that you receive, so we continue to add value for you in growing your business. So now I would like to hand this over to the following people to provide opening remarks for this session. I would like to welcome Maye, the Interim VP of Global and Domestic Programs, as well as Max Oltersdorf, Deputy Director of International Affairs and Trade with the Office of Governor Gavin Newsom's Office of Business and Economic Development. So welcome, Maye and Max, and let's begin with you, Maye.
Thank you so much, Saori. Welcome, everyone. My name is Maye Saephanh, and I am the Director of the Sacramento Minority Business Development Agency Export Center. We'll call that MBDA moving forward. Our team is excited to partner with the Asia Development Bank, the U.S. Commercial Service, and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development to present this series to you. The Sacramento MBDA Export Center mission is to help minority business enterprises succeed as exporters to Asia Pacific. We do this by providing consultation and technical resources for minority business enterprises. Our services include global business development, business matchmaking, access to capital, access to contracts. We are excited today to help you as business owners learn more about how to bid and win global contracts across various industries. I am confident you will gain valuable information from this webinar and look forward to your success in exporting, including project opportunities with the Asia Development Bank. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Maye. And this is Max Oltersdorf, Deputy Director for International Affairs at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. I just want to echo the thanks to CalAsian Chamber, Asia Development Bank, the U.S. Commercial Service, and the other hosts. And as everyone on the call knows, California is home to many world-leading green infrastructure and construction companies. And we want to make sure that you all have access to opportunities around the globe to export your goods and services. So we hope this webinar series is valuable, and please reach out to my office if you require additional support. We are here to help, and we have specialists in this subject. So with that, I'll turn it back over, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maye and Max. We really appreciate you being here and providing your opening remarks. So we are also incredibly fortunate to have speakers from the Asian Development Bank with deep experience and expertise. I know you'll learn a lot, and I'm excited for you to learn about the contracting opportunities for your business. At this time, I would like to introduce you to 2 speakers from Asian Development Bank who will provide introductory remarks for ADB, Chung and Rustam Abdukayumov. And let me just introduce Jason and Rustam by sharing their bios. So Jason Chung serves as the U.S. Executive Director, where he represents the United States on the Board of Directors of Asian Development Bank. Prior to his appointment, Jason served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Public Affairs. His portfolio included matters related to international affairs, development finance, CFIUS, trade and bilateral relationship between the U.S. Treasury and Ministries of Finance and other nations. Mr. Chung is a graduate of Trinity College in Connecticut and is married with 2 young children. He resides in Fairfax County, Virginia, and in Manila, Philippines. And Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov is the Director of Procurement Division 2 of the Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department at ADB, where he oversees procurement and consulting services, operations in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Pacific countries. His experience at ADB includes working on large and complex turnkey civil work and supply contracts in irrigation, transport, urban and energy sectors, and carrying out country, sector, and project procurement risk assessments. He served as a secretary to ADB's Procurement Committee, responsible for oversight of high-value procurement transactions across ADB developing member countries, and is head of the Procurement Support Unit, providing data and analysis on procurement transactions for PPFD management. Mr. Abdukayumov is a national of Uzbekistan. He obtained his master's degree in Oriental Studies from Tashkent State University. So very impressive. 2 people, thank you very much for being here. So welcome, Jason Chung and Rustam Abdukayumov. I'll turn it over to you, Jason.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I appreciate all of you who are taking the time to learn about the Asian Development Bank, especially the finance infrastructure projects across our developing member countries. We have plenty of experts from ADB who will elaborate on the opportunities for U.S. companies, consultants, and suppliers. This is a very special webinar for me, as it marks my first official event after being confirmed by the U.S. Senate and sworn into office as the U.S. ambassador to the bank. And I'm still getting used to seeing the ambassador title in writing, and it might take me a little bit to get used to it a little bit more. This is a very important agenda item for me, one that I focused on significantly since joining the bank and the executive director's office over 2 years ago. I want to thank our sponsors, both on the state, local, and federal levels. I think they all understand and are firmly aware of the opportunity that U.S. firms can play in approximately $30 billion that ADB annually invests across Asia and the Pacific. I want to thank my federal colleagues, the Sacramento Minority Business Development Agency Export Center, the U.S. Commercial Service Sacramento Expert Assistance Center, who helped create this event. We hope this event will be a model for future web-based and in-person engagements in the future. I want to thank my ADB procurement colleagues as well. They are experts and professionals, and appreciate them for taking the time to participate in this event. Lastly, I want to thank my 2 colleagues from the U.S. Commercial Service, Mark O'Grady and Michael Maye. They are not only great resources to me, but can be very valuable to you, and I encourage you to connect with them early and often. With that, I thank you for attending and appreciate your interest in procurement opportunities with the Asian Development Bank, and I turn it back over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Jason. Welcome, and thank you for your wonderful remarks. I would like to now give this to Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov, if he has any introductory remarks on behalf of ADB.
Thank you, Saori, and good evening.
Good evening, welcome. And Rustam, do you have any remarks, or shall we get started with our speakers?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This seminar, I would like to thank Ambassador Jason Chung, I would like to thank our colleagues from U.S. Commercial Service and the host organization for helping us to organize this event. As you may know, every year during the last 10 years, ADB traditionally organized the Business Opportunities Fair in Manila. So this is a forum for consultants, contractors, manufacturers, suppliers, civil society organizations, and all those who are interested in providing services to ADB under ADB finance projects. So these forums were a good opportunity for interested parties to network with ADB staff and learn about opportunities and learn how to basically find them and how to submit their tenders. And last Business Opportunities Fair in Manila was attended by more than 1,000 participants. And this was quite a big event. This year, we were also planning to organize a similar event, but not in Manila, in one of the regions where ADB operates. Unfortunately, due to unprecedented disruptions caused by COVID-19 and travel restrictions, we had to postpone this event to a later date. Nevertheless, we are keen to continue our engagement with the consultants, contractors, manufacturers, and all parties interested to work with ADB. And this year, we decided to conduct the seminars virtually. The ADB colleagues share relevant information with you so that you're better in opportunities. Information also, we are currently working on enhancing our ADB business outreach website to provide more relevant information and also to describe opportunities available under projects that are aimed at addressing COVID-19 related issues. We are planning to organize a virtual launch event in October, and we will announce this on ADB website, as well as we will inform all ADB constituencies through the board of directors and through the embassies. Today's event at your request is focusing on ADB's operations in the urban and water sector. And I'm pleased to introduce our ADB colleagues who will be making their presentations. It is Manoj Sharma, who is the chief of our urban sector group. He will be discussing about the urban sector initiatives and their linkages with the ADB Strategy 2030. Jacobus Veerman, our senior water resource specialist, will present ADB's operations in the water sector in general, because it's quite a big sector, and also will focus on priorities in the subsectors, such as the hydropower, irrigation, water supply and sanitation, and flood management, and so on. And then our procurement specialist, Dharmesh Dawda, will talk about ADB's procurement framework, business opportunities in different sectors, how to find them, how to prepare quality bids, and how to participate in all these initiatives that ADB is proposing. I hope you will find this event useful, and I hope it will help you better understand how ADB operates. And finally, I hope it will help you win contracts on the ADB projects. Thank you very much for your interest and wishing you a good, successful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you both. Really appreciate your comments, both Jason Chung and Rustam Abdukayumov. Really appreciate you being here and providing these introductions, and certainly looking forward to what will be shared today at today's events and the future opportunities that we have going forward with Asian Development Bank. So now let's start with Manoj Sharma, who will start the presentations with us.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm delighted to be here, and it's my pleasure to talk about ADB's policies and operational plan on livable cities and potential for collaboration in the urban sector. Yeah, here is the outline of the presentation. I'll talk about urbanization trends in Asia and the Pacific, Then I'll briefly discuss ADB Strategy 2030, Livable Cities Operational Plan, and the post-COVID-19 new normal guidance to cities which we have prepared in ADB. I'll then give more details of ADB's urban sector portfolio, still on the previous slide, please, and potential for collaboration with US companies, private sector, and other institutions. Specifically, I'll talk about business opportunities in ADB's urban sector. Yeah, next, please. Okay, urbanization, especially in developing countries, is one of the most significant global trends, and it's going to define the future. Particularly in Asia and the Pacific, urban populations have increased from about 20% in 1950s to 48% in 2018. In terms of numbers, we can see that by 2030, cities in Asia and the Pacific will have 55% of region's population, which is estimated to be 2.5 billion people. That's really a big number. All of us are quite aware, rapid urbanization is often linked to improved economic opportunities, better living conditions, access to health and other services. And it also creates resource scarcity, climate change impacts, and conflicts, which may result in refugees and internally displaced persons. The rate of urbanization and uncontrolled urban growth in our region, Asia and the Pacific, has actually compounded the existing challenges of environmental degradation, social inequality, disaster risks, and massive shortfall in urban infrastructure. We did a study recently, and as per our estimates, the region will need to invest 26.2 trillion US dollars during 2016 to 2030. This translates to 1.7 trillion US dollars per year, only on infrastructure, and that is to maintain growth, eradicate poverty, and respond to climate change. So 1.7 trillion US dollars per year is a huge investment opportunity for US institutions, private sector, and consultants, contractors, and everywhere. Yeah. Next, please. Let me talk a little bit about ADB Strategy 2030, which is our long-term strategic framework until 2030. Our vision is to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific, while continuing our efforts to eradicate extreme poverty. How do we propose to add value to our stakeholders? That's going to be through finance, but these days we talk about finance plus plus. So in addition to finance or lending, we also focus on knowledge solutions and partnerships. And this is where we believe that our US stakeholders and partners can really add value to our client countries in the region. Next, please. Just let me give the focus of 7 operational priorities in ADB under Strategy 2030. We have moved from our sector and silo approach to more thematic and cross-sector approach in terms of operational priorities. Operational Priority 1 deals with addressing remaining poverty and reducing inequalities. This continues to remain important for us. Priority 2 is on gender equality. Priority 3 is on climate change, building climate, disaster resilience, and enhancing environmental sustainability. Priority 4, which I'll talk about more because I am leading that effort in ADB, is on making cities more livable. So we no longer talk about urban sector as one silo, but more cross-sector and thematic approach of making cities more livable. Priority 5 is on rural development and food security. Priority 6 is on governance and institutional capacity. And Priority 7 is on regional cooperation and integration. Next, please. So ADB Strategy 2030 has identified making cities more livable as one of its 7 important operational priorities. So this particular operational priority sets out the direction and approach for us to help our member countries build livable cities, which we define as green, competitive, inclusive, and resilient. This particular plan also helps us to support our cities in developing member countries to build the right institutions, policies, and enabling environment to become more livable. In terms of specific outcomes, This operational plan has three important pillars or key outcomes as is elaborated on this particular slide. The first one is on infrastructure and services. Second one is on urban planning and financial sustainability. And third one is on urban environment, climate resilience, and disaster management. Next, please. Okay, let me talk a little bit on post-COVID-19 situation. As all of us know, cities are at the forefront of COVID-19 crisis. More than 90% of cases occur in cities. So it's quite obvious that the impacts of the pandemic are most felt by the residents in cities. Post-pandemic, cities are going to see lasting, and if I may use the word, irreversible changes. Such changes will range from cities' planning systems, their densities, economic and community structures, social behaviors, or urban governance as a broad overview. Cities across the world will need to be more resilient to future shocks, not only to climate change and disasters, but also to pandemics and other similar disruptive events. This is a big lesson from COVID-19. So we have developed an approach and a framework which is elaborated in this particular slide. I'll just mention a few important things in this. So we have, based on our operational plan on livable cities, we have highlighted 6 different new normal approaches to focus, to guide our cities. The first one is on inclusivity through greater social protection measures for the most vulnerable groups. Second one, which continues from pre-COVID days, is to have more focus on urban services and infrastructure. But the change is that more and more use of technologies and digital solutions will guide infrastructure development and provision of urban services. The third new normal approach is on revisiting urban planning systems to strategically incorporate lessons from COVID-19. For example, I was talking about vulnerable people and migrant laborers. So we have seen the plight of millions of migrant workers when they left cities and their jobs and moved back to villages and provinces. Now, this calls for an opportunity in cities in our region to develop small towns, medium towns, and secondary cities as alternate hubs to metros and big cities. And these secondary cities could become the magnet for the rural migrant workers in our developing member countries. Same is the debate about the optimal urban density. So in terms of urban planning approach, now there's no one definition of an optimal urban densities, but this pandemic has given an opportunity for our cities to talk about the right optimal density for each of the cities. The new normal approach number 4 is on financial sustainability and building capacities of urban institutions. This is really important, particularly when the revenues have gone down and the costs have increased for urban utilities and urban agencies in our region. The fifth new normal approach is on healthy and environmentally sustainable cities. This is absolutely important. And finally, the sixth new normal approach is to build resilient cities which have the capacity to absorb shocks and stresses due to pandemics, disasters, and climate change. So this is our framework. We have developed a comprehensive guidance note, and we have reached out to our cities and our staff, consultants, contractors in the region to take more and more steps and focus on addressing the challenges of COVID-19. Next, please. What we have observed in post-COVID-19 situation is that our project commitments and approvals to support the urban sector have a high potential to increase, not only in the immediate term and short and medium term. So while the world is going through an economic recession, potential of business for ADB to support cities is increasing. And since it's a crisis, we are trying to support cities to take immediate actions and emergency responses, but not losing sight of the short and medium term and the long term opportunities, which will help our cities to maximize their opportunities to build back normal in a new normal build back better in a new normal situation. What we have seen is that cities can turn this crisis into an opportunity and work towards being more safe, healthy, inclusive, environmentally sustainable, and resilient. We have also seen a shift in demand for various opportunities and projects in cities when we talk to our stakeholders in our member countries. That has been listed here. I will not go into too much details on the kind of opportunities, but we can see that there is definitely more demand for urban environmental improvement, uninterrupted urban services, more social protection measures, and increased use of technologies and digital solutions. We will continue to help our cities understand their challenges, prepare roadmaps, provide resources, and monitor their implementation. Next, please. Now, I would like to give an overview of ADB's urban sector portfolio, which has increased from about $1 billion US per year in 2010 to about $2 billion US per year in 2018. And we see a potential to increase it to 2.5 to $3 billion per year because urban sector is one of the fastest growing sectors in ADB. And when I talk about livable cities, we are talking about infrastructure sectors like water sector, energy and transport, but also the social sectors like education, health, social protection, finance. So in all these sectors which help cities become more livable, we see increased opportunities. Next, please. If we look at ADB's urban sector commitments in 2019, just as a sample, urban water supply is still the largest component at 28% of our overall portfolio, followed by urban sewerage and sanitation at 19%. An important point to note in this portfolio distribution is that substantive soft component of urban policy, institutional support, improving urban governance, capacity development, and knowledge management support is also quite substantial. In terms of our regional distribution, South Asia captures the maximum share at 38%, followed by East Asia at 34%. Next, please. Now I'll come to specific instances of business opportunities in our urban sector projects. I would like to draw your attention to two types of opportunities. First one is what we call the contracts awarded by ADB directly through transaction technical assistance, TRTAs, and knowledge and support technical assistance. Second kind of business opportunities are those which are awarded by our client countries. This could be civil works contracts, supply of equipment and consulting services, and capacity development support. We'll hear more from Dharmesh when he gives details on procurement systems in ADB. Next, please. In the urban sector, on the first type of opportunities in consulting services for transaction technical assistance, we see that almost 20 million worth of contracts were awarded for TRTAs and almost 17 million, or I should say transaction technical assistance, and almost 17 million contracts were awarded in 2019 for knowledge and support technical assistance. So this year, we expect around 40 million of consulting services opportunities only in the urban sector. Next, please. If we look at the business opportunities in member countries on ADB projects, this comes from three types of contracts awarded by client governments, civil works of about 87%, equipment of about 4%, and consultancy of about 9%. The total amount of contracts for projects committed between 2016 and 2019 is about $3.5 billion US, which is quite substantial. Next slide, please. This slide gives urban sector committed projects in 2019 distributed across countries. As can be seen, China, India, and Bangladesh are the top three countries in terms of commitment amounts in 2019. Next, please. This is a list of urban sector projects committed in 2019. Just want to mention that such projects are potential opportunities for all three types of contracts: civil works, equipment, and consulting services, and from both types of employers, our ADB contracts and client countries. Next, please. Yeah, this slide gives urban sector projects likely to be committed in this year 2020, again distributed across countries. As can be seen from this slide, India, Bangladesh, and China are the top 3 countries in terms of committed amounts in 2020. Next, please. Here is the list of urban sector projects committed in 2020. Since we'll be sharing copies of the presentation, you can have a list. You can have a look at this potential projects which are going to become opportunities in 2020, and then approach us, and we'll put you in touch with the corresponding project officers to provide more details. This slide gives similar opportunities in terms of 2021 distributed across countries. Slight shift here. India, Pakistan, and Vietnam are the top 3 countries in terms of committed amounts in 2021. Next, please. Here is a list of urban sector projects committed or likely to be committed in 2021. Next, please. This list continues, and then yeah, this is my last slide. Our region in Asia and Pacific needs huge investments in the urban sector with the objective of making cities more livable. And as I mentioned, our strategy 2030 and livable cities operational priority plan reiterate importance of cities in our region. ADB's urban sector portfolio is increasing at a fast pace. There are a lot of opportunities in our urban sector, and we really look forward to working together with our US stakeholders. And finally, while COVID-19 is a crisis, as all of us know, but this could be converted into opportunities for our cities in member countries to reduce inequalities of access, making cities more safe, healthy, environmentally sustainable, resilient, and inclusive in a post-COVID-19 world. So thank you, and we really look forward to working together with our stakeholders. And I'll be happy to take questions and more discussions. So thank you very much. Over to you, Saori.
Thank you so much, Manoj. I really appreciate all the information that you shared, and appreciate your comment about how we can turn crisis into an opportunity to be more safe, healthy, inclusive, and sustainable. It's such a great viewpoint, and look forward to those opportunities that Asian Development Bank will be able to provide. So just a quick reminder for all the participants that if you do have questions, you are welcome to enter your questions into the Q&A box. And that should be located at the bottom of the screen, right in the center. So your questions are welcome. We will review them and go over the Q&A portion towards the end of the program. So thank you again, Manoj. I would now like to hand this over to Jacob Veerman, Senior Water Resources Specialist at the Asian Development Bank. Welcome,
yes,
Jacob.
thank you. Yes, thank you so much. Very happy to be there, to be with you, especially because I lived and worked in California for 4 years. So it feels a little bit like homecoming. I worked in Los Angeles for 2 years, and I worked in San Francisco as a Dutch diplomat for 2 years. So thank you so much. My first slide is a picture of a World Resources Institute map, what presents you a high baseline water stress in the world. And it's the amount of fresh water available in surface and groundwater versus the amount withdrawn from municipal and industrial use. And as you can see, and you live in California, there is high baseline water stress in your region, but especially in developing countries, high level water stress can cause serious threats to human lives, livelihoods, and business stability. And on the left side of this map, you see the countries in Asia who are facing at this moment extreme high water stress. And 3 of the countries are India, Pakistan, and Turkmenistan. So water management, water stress is a high priority for ADB. Ladies and gentlemen, 7 of 10 countries, and I don't have a picture of this, but 7 of 10 countries in the world highest hit by an environmental stress and natural disaster are located in Asia too, as Bangladesh, Cambodia, and the Philippines, but also the Pacific Islands as the Solomon Islands, Tonga, and Vanuatu. So one of the policy focuses of ADB is climate finance. And in ADB's strategy 2030, climate finance will reach an 80 billion investment. Next slide, please. My presentation, in this presentation, I will give you an overview of ADB's water sector and ADB's water sector operation achievements. And as my colleague Manoj already told you, we're all our strategy and implementation is based on strategy 2030, focused to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific through the value of finance, knowledge, and partnerships. And next slide, please. Here again, an overview of the 7 operational plans for the water sector. As you can see, there is not a separate operational plan, but the water sector and our activities is intertwined in all operational plans. And linked through these operational plans to the SDGs and to the indicators and targets set by the SDGs of the United Nations. So the water sector has a focus on water supply and sanitation, flood prevention, drought, and other water-related disasters, as a focus on nature-based solutions, water quality and integrated water resource management, has also a strong focus on water reuse, water stress, shed management, water security, and an important focus of our water sector is the link between water, food, energy, and security in this water, food, security, and energy nexus. Next slide, please. Within the ADB, water is cross-cutting, and through the water, food, energy, and security nexus, we are strongly related and we work strongly together with our urban sector group, our rural development and food security thematic group, and our energy group. And this means that we have 5 important clusters: water supply, water for food, water for energy, sanitation, wastewater, and water quality, and an integrated flood risk management and disaster resilience. And what you can see in this slide are the links through water, urban, and infrastructure services with the urban sector group, the link with the rural development and food security thematic group through agriculture, natural resources, and rural development, and with the energy group as an example of the hydropower projects we implement. The next 2 slides and this is, I think, very important for you as a private sector, as a business, we have as a water sector a strong focus on innovation and presenting innovation trends from all over the world to ADB. And when you look at these innovative trends, a lot of new innovations comes from technology and data management. And in this first cluster, I selected a couple of countries where you can see this technology and data management implemented. A second innovative focus is innovation and focus on innovative financing and transaction mechanisms. As you all know, as a water sector, we are facing a huge investment for the next 10, 20, 30 years in water-related projects. And these innovations, these projects can not only be financed by the public sector, but also have to be financed through a cooperation between public and private investments. And these innovations focus to provide the governments, service providers, regulators with the framework to intertwine public and private investments. A third innovation focus is on asset management. On the next slide, you see the fourth focus. It's on governance, performance, and capacity building. These projects are implemented by our colleagues of the operation departments. And here you see 5 examples in China, Bangladesh, Georgia, India, and Laos, related to also the different clusters, focuses within the water sector. The 5th innovation focus is on integrated water sector activities, climate and resilience and environment. And also you see a strong link here between the water sector, the urban sector, the environmental sector, and the climate and resilience sector within ADB. Next slide, please. A big support for the water sector within ADB is the water financing partnership facilities. This water finance partnership facilities is supported by a multi-donor trust fund funded by Australia, Austria, Norway, Spain, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. And the key focus of this fund, and for you as a private sector, I think very important to know, is this seeding money, this catalysator money, what can be used through our operational departments for innovative project design, improve the implementation of projects, support capacity building, and also hiring expertise, consultants for technical assistance for projects. Through this trust fund, we supported from the moment the trust fund was started in 2006 till 117 million beneficiaries in Asia, with a focus on the left side here on this slide to give people access to safe drinking water and water supply, and improved sanitation, reduced risk on flooding, and access to improved irrigation and drainage services. Next slide, please. In the next two slides, you see the ongoing technical assistance and capacity building of this water financing partnership facility. And again, you see here that a main focus is on knowledge and innovation support. An ongoing project on flood risk management in 8 countries in Asia, but also an accelerating of sanitation by supporting inclusive sanitation programs in Asia. Next slide, please. Since the start of COVID-19 this year, we are also supporting the strengthening of an integrated approach on water and health, so in the wash sector, to create awareness, engagement, policy dialogue, and capacity building within our countries in Asia. Next slide, please. My second part of the presentation is how the water sector group is active through our operational departments and our lending history and pipeline by subsector. So next slide, please. What you see here is an overview from 2016 in the lending history to 2022 pipeline by subsector. And especially here, I think the focus on subsectors, water supply sanitation and wastewater management, flood management, hydropower, irrigation and drainage, water resources management here is very important. Next slide, please. In this slide, you see the lending history and pipeline by operational departments. And from left to right, you see the lending history in the region Central West, East Asia, the Pacific Islands, the lending history through our private sector operation, and Southeast Asia. And what you see, if you, for example, zoom in of next year, 2021, is that you see a big investment in the Southeast Asia, the East Asia and Southeast Asia region. Next slide, please. This slide zooms in on our water investments in 2019 with a 1.2 billion investments. And on the left side, you see the subsector with 700 million investment in water supply, sanitation, wastewater and wastewater management. The 20% investment in irrigation and drainage. And also the 20% investment, 21% investment in water resources management, and flood management 15%, and hydropower with 8% investment. On the right side, you see the investments by region, and especially in the Central and West Asia, you see a big investment in Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. In the South Asia region, in the red, you see the investments in Indonesia and in Cambodia. What I want to advise you here is that if you are interested as a private sector to reach out with your innovation and your business to ADB, please study our country partnership strategies and our country operational business plans. ADB has with its counterparts in Asia. You can find all these reports on the website of ADB. So if you are interested in doing business in, for example, Indonesia, study and read these country partnership plans and these country operational business plans. It gives you a lot of insight in the priorities of these countries in relation to ADB's future upcoming projects and activities. Next slide, please. In this slide, you see the active water projects as of July 2020 by subsector and by operational departments. And again, in blue on the left side, you see a strong focus on water supply and sanitation and wastewater management. Again, a big focus in our active projects on irrigation and drainage, flood management, water resources management, and hydro power. On the right side, you see the active projects by operational departments and a big cluster in South Asia, big projects in India and Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia in Vietnam and Indonesia, and so on, and so on. And also from a water perspective, what I think makes it very interesting for you is to present your new technology, your high-tech innovations, as I mentioned earlier in my previous slides, with technology and data management, innovative financing, a strong focus on asset management, governance, capacity building, and integrated water sector activities. These are our innovative trends. What are of interest for us as ADB, but also have a strong focus in our partner countries. Next slide, please. This is my final slide with some advice and next steps for you. As mentioned earlier, when you want to do business with ADB, please start focusing and reading, studying the ADB strategy. But if you have specific country focus, read our country partnership strategies and the country operational business plans, because through these plans you can read the policies and the strategies of ADB and our partners in the region. When you are focusing on projects or presenting your innovation to ADB, study the project cycle of ADB. Focus on the preparation of projects, the approval of projects, the implementation of projects, and how the project cycle works, and also where and how you can present your added value and your knowledge and expertise to ADB. And what my colleague from the procurement department will also present to you. If you are interested in reaching out to us, register in our consultant management systems. Here you also can find on our website the water-related projects. And if you are looking for projects, please search on agriculture and natural resources, energy and water-related projects, and water and urban and infrastructure service projects. What is important for all of us is to make yourself known to us. We are connected to the whole world, consultants through services and goods, but there are different opportunities for you to present yourself to headquarters and to the resident missions. Now through via virtual presentations, via brown bags, but after when all the travel restrictions are not in place anymore, you can also visit headquarters to present your innovation to us. What I also want to advise you, if you have a specific country focus, look for local partners who know the situation on the ground and who can help you fine-tuning your added value, your knowledge, your innovation to the local circumstances. And to bridge to my colleague from the procurement department, study the procurement plans, and please follow the guidelines ADB presents to all counterparts and countries, private sector who want to do business with ADB. Next slide, please. If you ever have questions about water-related projects, innovations, please send me an email and I will come back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jacob. This information was very, very helpful. I appreciate how you shared the next steps. And I know we've got some questions in the pipeline that are tied to some of those next steps. So I know we'll have a further conversation around that. And I also appreciate how you shared the importance of water investments and the number of projects that is in ADB's portfolio. It's quite impressive, and also appreciate the sharing in regards to financing, public and private investments, seeding money for innovation, as well as trust funds. So there's quite a range there. So thank you so much, Jacob, for sharing all this helpful information. Next, I would like to hand this over to Dharmesh Dawda, the procurement specialist at the Asian Development Bank. And Dharmesh will go into a deeper dive in regards to procurement. So I hope the audience will find this helpful as they start working towards the next steps on the opportunities with Asian Development Bank. So welcome, Dharmesh.
Thank you, Saori, and good evening to all the participants. I will run through the ADB overview, the overview of operations, and I will talk about the type of opportunities or the what kind of procurement services or goods or works we procure. I'll also talk about how do we procure, where to find the information, and we'll talk about some common tips or do's and don'ts. So yeah, next slide, please. So ADB operations, there are two funding types. One is the sovereign operations, public sector, and non-sovereign operations. Sovereign operations is basically borrowed by our developing member countries, and non-sovereign is the private sector. ADB operations is largely sovereign operations. But the private sector operations is also growing fast in last few years. So this is some of the data as of 2018 for ADB operations. Next slide, please. Okay, the types of business opportunities is goods and civil works and consulting services. So goods and civil works are procured through our executing agencies who are the borrowers from our developing member countries, and consulting services are through ADB, where ADB directly procures consulting services, and also our executing agencies procure the consulting services. Consulting services, it could be consulting firm or also individual consultants, depending on the need for the project. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the overall portfolio breakdown per sector across the bank, covering all the regions. So largely, 70% of the portfolio is water, urban, transport, and energy, and the remaining is other sectors, which is also growing fast in line with our strategy 2030. And as Manoj mentioned, my colleague in his presentation, that currently urban infrastructure is the fastest growing portfolio within ADB. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just the breakdown of how ADB's portfolio is across different regions. It's split between 5 different regions. Next slide, please. This is list of the top 5 borrowers of ADB. It's India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia. It varies every year, but largely it shuffles around within these countries. So you can actually plan, where the largest, where the highest investments is going, in which countries and in which region. Next slide, please. This is the funding trend, how the sovereign portfolio in terms of active portfolio has been growing since 2014, and the split between the sovereign and the non-sovereign portfolio. Next slide, please. Okay, type of opportunities is the supply of goods, which may involve machinery, equipment, computers, furnitures, civil works. Depending on which sector within the water, it's only mentioned as water treatment plants, but it's much more. It covers the water distribution network, wastewater treatment plants, wastewater conveyance systems, and other urban aspects as well are covered under civil works. Consulting services, it could be project management consultancy during the construction phase to support our executing agencies. It's also upfront in the project cycle for project preparation, preparing feasibility study, detailed designs. It could be knowledge products, and sometimes it's also staff consultants, individual consultants to bring in their specialized expertise. We also procure non-consulting services to do survey, sometimes trainings, event management in terms of organizing big events within ADB, like business opportunity fairs or any other big training event if conducted in our developing member countries. Next slide, please. Okay, so who has been successful? This is the procurement ranking for the goods. The top 5 countries have secured the maximum value in terms of maximum contracts in terms of value. It's just the information for you to look around. Next slide, please. This is the procurement ranking for works, civil works. Top 5 countries where the civil works contractors have won the contracts by value. Next slide, please. This is for the consulting services. and USA in 2017 was among the top 5. Next slide, please. These are the top suppliers of goods, top 5 suppliers of the goods covering bank-wide. So this is not specific to any particular region, but it's covering all 5 regions by number of contracts and the amount of the contract they secured. Next slide, please. These are the top 5 suppliers of the works contract, civil works contract, by number of contracts and the contract amount. Next slide, please. These are the top 5 consulting services firms. Again, the number of contracts and the contract value. Next slide, please. This is the US suppliers and contractors, top suppliers and contractors by information by sector and contract amount in last 5 years. You will find more information about the US suppliers, contractors, also the consulting services. There is a link where you can access the fact sheet for the US. You can actually find the fact sheet for all the countries on the ADB's website under publication tab, which will give you all the facts for that country. Next slide, please. Okay, the procurement framework. The policy under the procurement framework is the driver. The regulation sits under the policy and the staff instructions, the bidding documents, and the guidance notes. So there is consistency between policy, regulations, staff instructions, and bidding documents. So the difference between, say, regulation and staff instruction is basically the regulation is broad and staff instruction goes into detail and provides more guidance on the framework. And then the standard bidding document and user guides. Currently, there are 8 standard bidding documents and 9 user guides published on ADB's website. You can easily download the template of the standard bidding documents to understand and study the structure of the bidding documents for the works contracts. The 8 standard bidding documents are based on what type of contract modality is going to be used for the project. So it ranges from bidding document for the procurement of goods to bidding document for a DBO kind of contract, design, build, and operations contract. So you will find all sorts of standard bidding documents and the user guides on how to understand those bidding documents and also how to go through the different sections of those bidding documents. So I will strongly encourage you to familiarize through the structure of the bidding documents. Then there are 24 guidance notes, again, easily accessible from ADB's website. There is a list of all the useful links I have provided in the last slide. So you will be able to access, you will get the links to access all of these information from the ADB's website. Guidance notes supports the regulation. It's as the name suggests, it's only the guidance note. But it can be altered and modified. So we also, advise if you go through the guidance note and if you think the guidance notes can be improved, ADB will welcome the feedback. You could reach out to PPFD on any aspects of guidance notes to improvise, further on understanding of the procurement framework. Next slide, please. So how we procure goods and works, the borrower, the executing agency is responsible for procurement of goods and works. ADB does not procure goods and works directly, it's only the borrower. ADB reviews the procurement activities of the executing agencies. So ADB has a fiduciary care to ensure compliance with ADB's procurement policy and procurement regulations for our borrowers. Generally, the procurement is through open international bidding, which is the preferred options, but there are other procurement methods, which I'll talk about in a bit in other slides, but this is generally the preferred option. There are technical and financial bid elements. Again, depending on the procurement strategy, you may see the technical and financial bids to be submitted separately in different envelopes. Sometimes it is common envelope, and that's generally, varies from project to project basis, depending on the strategy for that particular procurement strategy for that project and how our borrower would like to approach the process. On goods and works, lowest price, technically compliant bid is generally the winner, but this is not necessarily sort of the rule under the ADB procurement framework. There is an option to actually use a merit point system or scoring system and give weightage to our technical proposal and have a combination of technical quality as well as financial bid for goods and works. But largely our developing member countries or executing agencies opt for lowest price technically compliant bid. Next slide, please. How we procure consultants. Consultants are procured both by ADB and our executing agencies. So the contractual employer can be either executing agency or ADB. So if the consultants are procured by our borrowers, then the contractual relationship is between the executing agency or the employer and the consultant. ADB is then not party to that contract. But if ADB is directly procuring consultant through their technical assistance, then ADB is the contracting party with the consultants. If executing agency procures the consultant, similar to goods and works, ADB reviews the procurement activities for selection of consultants done by executing agencies to ensure the compliance with ADB's policies and regulations. Again, for the consulting firm selection or procurement, open international bidding is the preferred option. And in consultant selection, if it's a consulting firm, then its technical and financial bid elements always happen in two envelope process. So technical and financial bids are separately submitted. In contrast to goods and works, consulting services, especially the consulting firm procurement, there is, it's usually called QCBS, quality cost-based selection, where the weightage to the quality is 90% and the cost weightage is only 10%. So it's not the least cost who wins the contract as it is in the goods and services. In the consultants, its highest weightage is given to the technical or the quality proposal from the consultant. So best technical submission usually wins in the consulting firm's procurement. Next slide, please. These are the main procurement modalities. As I said, open competitive bidding is the preferred option, but there are some other modalities, limited competitive bidding or request for quotations, usually used for goods. Framework agreement for consultants, where we have pre-qualified consultants. So there is a selection process, procurement process to actually get the individual consultants on framework agreement, which can also be done for the consulting firms. Usually the framework agreements are for multi-year, 2 to 3 years. And once the consultants are pre-qualified into the framework agreement, then depending on how the framework agreement has been structured, then it's when the assignment comes in, the consultants are already on the panel. And direct contracting is also an option, but it's used in special circumstances, depending on the need of the project. And there are other lesser used modalities. You can scroll through our website. Again, you will find the links in the last slide. Next slide, please. Okay, how to access the opportunities for the consultancy assignments. As my colleague Jacob mentioned, register in ADB's consultant management system. It's CMS. CMS is where the opportunity, all the consulting opportunities are advertised. So even if our executing agencies or borrowers are procuring the consulting services in any country, they are advertised on CMS. And ADB procurement of consultants is also happens through CMS. CMS is where you submit your proposal, but only for ADB procurement, where ADB procures the consultant. If the borrower or executing agency is procuring the consultants, then the proposals are not submitted through CMS, but you get the advertisement. So if you are registered on our CMS, and if there is a consulting assignment happening in, say, Tonga, and if you're registered, it will be advertised on CMS, and you will get the alert about the opportunity. But the submission, if it's done by if it's procured by the borrower, then it will happen as per at the borrower's end, depending on what are the instructions in the RFP, request for proposal issue. For the goods and services, we encourage you to access country strategies, see general procurement notices, access procurement plans. This is where you will find the information of what's coming up, in which countries, what are the procurement notices and procurement plans. Procurement plans are generally published on ADB's website after the approval of the project, and it's updated on regular basis. The normal duration of the procurement plan is about 18 months. So you can look at what are the different sub-projects or packages which are coming up over next 18 months for a particular project in a region or in a country. As I mentioned earlier, goods and services, ADB does not procure goods, and when I say services, it's actually works. So those informations are not in like we have for the consultancy services, CMS. We don't have that for goods and works because it's done by the borrowers. Next slide, please. Okay, some tips what to do. So what I have mentioned here is more about when you are submitting the proposal, make sure that you have a correct bid security amount, the validity, the signatures and the power of attorney as required or stated in the bidding document. If you are entering into a joint venture, then joint venture agreement, or at least letter of intent to enter into the joint venture if upon the contract award. Any references which are required as per the bidding document are enclosed. If it's a manual submission, then please ensure there is appropriate marking of the envelopes as required. Make sure you submit before the deadline and meet the country eligibility requirements. But I will expand a bit on this, especially for, say, consultant. As I mentioned in my previous slide, register in CMS, be familiar with the relevant ADB policies. You can find a lot of information under the staff instructions, which provides a lot more detail. There are staff instructions for procurement of goods and works and staff instructions for consultants. You can download from the website. Be familiar with the relevant ADB policies. Know the country of assignment and the related risk of the country or the region. Arrange site visit or try to establish the strong local partnership, because as my colleague said, the local firms have got strong field and ground knowledge. Also pay attention to the documentation requirement. Go through the instructions to the consultants, which are part of the request for proposal. Read those carefully, which will provide all the information in terms of submission of the proposal and what are the documentation required. For contractors and suppliers, start your intelligence gathering early. You can visit the country pages, country partners, look at the country partnerships document. There is a country operation business plans for 2 to 3 years. So start gathering your intelligence early, understand the country risk as it is for consultants, same for goods and work services. Follow bid data sheet instructions in the bidding document, and again, pay attention to your documentation requirement. So what not to do: do not submit conditional bids. Do not submit technical and financial bids in the same envelope if it is stated as 2 envelopes, but sometimes it's 1 envelope, in which case you submit all in 1 envelope. But so make sure that you are aware of the method for that particular package or sub project you are bidding, whether it's 2 envelope or 1 envelope. But what we normally see is that technical and financial bids are submitted in the same envelope when it's actually 2 envelopes. For works contract, do not omit any answers from section 3. What it means, when you familiarize yourself with standard bidding documents, you will see the bidding documents is structured in 9 sections. Section 3 is the evaluation and qualification criteria. So when you respond to any works contracts, make sure that you answer everything what is required from section 3, because that's the qualification criteria. Do not enter into a JV with a firm from a country not on the eligibility list. So not just JV, but the eligibility requirements are applicable to the entire supply chain. When you enter into the works contract, it applies to your subcontractors, to your suppliers in those contracts. everybody who is involved in any way in delivering those works or goods needs to ensure that the eligibility requirements are met. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the list of useful links. You know, everything I talked about, you will be able to find on ADB's website, CMS. You go to ADB Business Center. There is an ADB procurement page. Country strategies, procurement plans, where to find procurement notices, complaints. ADB also has the complaint system, where you will find the procurement policies, procurement regulations, the guidance, 24 guidance notes, the link to access standard bidding documents, user guides. There is also a COVID-19 page. You can access the COVID-19 page on the ADB's website, where it will give you up-to-date information on what COVID-related, how we are responding to COVID-19, what are the COVID-19 related opportunities. There is also a filter now added to CMS in the consulting management services for COVID-19 related opportunities. There is much more information on the COVID-19 page about the market research, which was conducted recently, so you will find those things useful. And next slide. I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have any queries about procurement related activities, you can send me an email. Thank you. Over to you, Saori.
Yes, thank you very much, Dharmesh. Really appreciate the comprehensive information that you provided. Sounds like there's a lot of information on the website and you were able to pull a lot of that out to walk us through the process. So much appreciated. I love the breakout between consultancy as well as the goods and services, understanding that there is a different process and the importance of the consultant management system. And also thank you for laying out what to do as well as not to do. I think that that's really important. So great presentation. Really thank you for your time and all the details that you provided. So now we've got some time, about 10-15 minutes for Q&A. We do have a number of questions and look forward to sharing some of the questions that we have and bringing in the speakers as well as Mark and Michael from the U.S. Commercial Service Liaison Office, if they are available to join us during the Q&A as well. So let me start with the first one. I'm going to turn on my video. First question, this came from someone that submitted a question during the registration process. And I know, Dharmesh, that you shared the link that is available on the website that provides up-to-date information in regards to the COVID-19 impact and opportunities, but would like to start the first question with what is the impact of COVID-19 in the sectors that you are handling? If there's just a couple items that you or someone within the group is willing to share, we'd love to hear.
Hi, I can comment first and then hand over to Dharmesh if that's fine. This is Manoj.
Thank you.
Okay, so considering that COVID-19 crisis is really unprecedented and all of us are going through difficult times, ADB stepped up its support to its member countries. In fact, in March and April this year, ADB prepared a special $20 billion package to support member countries. That's pretty substantial amount, considering that our normal operations are about $30 billion every year. So this $20 billion package is in addition to our usual business as usual. This package consists of three items particularly. First one is to strengthen healthcare facilities in our member countries, because that's really important to address the issues of COVID-19 crisis, which requires strengthening the hospitals or equipments or testing kits, laboratories, providing training and capacity building support to the technicians and laboratory personnel, etc. So that has really helped our member countries. Second support out of this $20 billion package is to provide budgetary funding to countries so that they can support MSME sector and businesses for working capital and immediate requirement of capital infusion. Third component of this support is to take care of vulnerable sections of the society and excluded people. And from the urban perspective, if I may say that, when we talk about vulnerable people, we are talking about poor, informal settlements, slums, even the pavement dwellers or migrant workers, or any other vulnerable sections or excluded sections which would be disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. So these three different interventions are contained in one package of $20 billion US, and we have proactively worked on approving, committing, and dispersing this fund for our cities. This has, and DMCs, member countries, and this has been really appreciated by our members. I'll stop here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. I can just quickly add, if you follow the COVID-19 procurement page, you will find more information how you can participate in ADB COVID-19 procurement and consulting services. And, there is also a products market research being done and published on the COVID-19 page. You can put in the expression of interest if you as a supplier falling into that category where you can help. Then there is supply chain maps for pandemic fighting products. So there is a lot of information on the COVID-19 page you will find about the procurement, how you can get involved. Thank you. Saori, we can, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and Saori, are you calling me?
Welcome, Mark. So good to see you. Great to see your face. Welcome. Welcome to the Q&A portion.
I just want to comment a little bit about COVID as well, just to let you know that we're very active here at the bank when it comes to that. There is a supply chain COVID page that ADB has out that all the multilateral banks actually use that just lists suppliers for that. We can send that out in a follow-up email on that. And it is such an interesting area right now. We are aware that the University of Chicago and a number of U.S. companies are also helping ADB in some early warning systems that are actually based on measurements of sewage systems in various countries of South Asia. So there's a lot going on when it comes to COVID. But the big point that I always have been making is that this is an outlier of what the bank does. And so it is a very, $20 billion is an important dynamic, but what we're trying to focus on in this and subsequent emails or subsequent webinars is the more day-to-day aspects of it. As the presenters talked about, where ADB has freed up another $20 billion, which is pretty much doubling what it on average what it spends. So it is a very important one, but I think the eyes on the prize is to keep focusing towards the daily actions of what ADB does, and just tracking COVID as a special case all to itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Much appreciated. So let's go to the next question. What are the minimum financial requirements a company should have to bid for these large infrastructure projects?
So normally you will get a very project specific or package specific information in the bidding document, but just as a general guide, I can say generally your company's construction turnover, I'm talking about the civil works, not for the goods. Again, it can be different for the goods, but for the civil works, as a rule of thumb, I would say at least one time the value of the contract as the turnover of your company, and then 3 months cash flow, availability of cash flow, required for that particular contract as a minimum. Yeah, I think, but again, I would encourage that please don't, make your decision just based on this rule of thumb. Find out the exact information as published in the bidding documents.
Next question, I did see, during the speaking opportunity that there was the consultancy opportunity. And this question is if an individual can compete for consulting work.
Yes, there are a lot of opportunities for individual consultants. Again, those are advertised on CMS. So yeah, get yourself registered. There are a lot of opportunities of individual consulting assignments from our borrowers as well, not just from ADB, but from our executing agencies. Those are advertised on CMS as well.
Okay, let me take a look at some of these questions here. They're in the Q&A box. This one from Mr. Brady. How can an organization propose a technical assistance and capacity building project for an ADB member country?
So, okay, if I understand the question right, as a consultant, you have to respond to the request for proposal. So RFP, when it's issued, look at the terms of reference. And because for consulting assignment, if it's a consulting firm, then there is a high weightage on the technical or the quality aspects. So through your approach and methodology in writing your technical proposal, you can propose the innovative ideas, and your past experience implementing those similar kind of ideas or solutions will enhance the quality of your technical proposal.
If I may supplement here, please, on this one.
Please.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So Dharmesh was right when he said that the opportunities are in both ADB and our executing agencies for technical assistance. I just want to supplement by saying that the type of opportunities are for policy advice or supporting reforms in our member countries. That's the one type. Second type is capacity building or institutional strengthening of the agencies which are designing, implementing, or monitoring our sector projects. And third type of opportunity is generating knowledge solutions and trying out pilots and demonstrations which are quite innovative. And so for all these three types of different opportunities, ADB has technical assistance or some other form of soft activity, we would say. And the opportunities are both in ADB as a client or member countries as clients. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Manoj. Okay, this question is from Mr. Dice. Are there any particular preferences or set-asides for small businesses in ADB contracts?
Sorry, can
If
you
I
repeat
could-
the question, please?
Yeah.
Would you like me to read the question again?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Are there any particular preferences or set-asides for small businesses in ADB contracts?
And if I can just join in real quickly, and also echoing back to the earlier question about individuals. Indeed, ADB actually identifies many of the consulting opportunities for individuals and not just for consulting firms. So I can't give you a number of how that percentage is, but a great deal of the ADB consulting contracts that are listed on there will be for individuals themselves. And I always try to, how do you deal with that when you're talking about the current question of small and medium-sized enterprises? I always make the joke that you can't get much smaller of an MSME than an individual. So I would have to say, yes, there is opportunities and programs designed for smaller enterprises, but not in the type of programs that we're talking about for U.S. government, minority business development, and so on. This is more looking at it from the perspective of the size of the project and the flexibility in being able to respond in a timely and effective manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I would just like to add that, yes, there are a lot of opportunities. I think last year, the procurement department of ADB processed around 3,000 individual contracts. So, as well as small. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dharmesh. I appreciate that. Okay, this next question is about networking, and I believe, Dharmesh, you probably touched on this, that, you know, in lieu of some of these in-person opportunities and attending some of these trade show events, that, you know, we can certainly connect virtually, such as an event such like this. But this question is how to best network or expose our services to large California, US-based engineering firms for partnering on Asian projects for water resources.
Yeah, so in terms of networking, you can participate in the annual business opportunities fair. This year, it has not happened in Manila, but you know, it usually happens around March or April, but not necessarily the same time, but that's generally historically has been, it has been like that. And as Rustam mentioned in his opening remarks, it's last year it was attended by 1,100 participants physically in Manila. And, you know, that is the event where you will get a lot of, you know, contacts, networking opportunities from suppliers, large contractors, medium contractors, consulting from all over the world. And it's a 3-day event. So, you know, that's a big platform. And as I think I mentioned in my presentation, gather your intelligence in your target country or do some research. There are country strategies. You can familiarize yourself with different country strategies published on the ADB's website, build your own strategy, and then try to gather more on-ground intelligence in that country.
Well, thank you so much, Dharmesh. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and after that, I know we've got to come to a close, and I appreciate all the questions that have come through during registration as well as during this webinar. Here's the last question. How do you see GIS or geographical information systems to be used as an asset management solution to manage data of water utilities using high-level technology? Do you think this particular component should specifically be included in the specifications or terms of references on the onset of your projects? Very specific question.
Hi, sorry. I can start and then maybe Jacob can supplement.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so first of all, let me start by responding that I couldn't agree more. This is absolutely an important aspect of all our urban water projects. And not only urban water, but also rural water or water resource management projects where GIS or more broadly, the high level technologies, as you mentioned, these are all very important components. In fact, I would say that GIS has actually been mainstreamed in our urban water operations, and we try to help our water utilities to build GIS maps of their consumers and assets, and then manage water supply networks in the most efficient and effective manner. As you know, in our region, non-revenue water, both physical and commercial losses are the most important concerns for urban water utilities. And proper GIS maps of water supply distribution network and other assets definitely help in reducing NRW. We have also tied up with several academic institutions and development partners to use space-based technologies and Earth observations to help our cities develop GIS maps, and even use drone surveys to streamline and fine-tune these maps. So using these maps, it's not only the overall planning, but even the design of components has been facilitated. So yeah, I think I can, I fully agree with your point, and the GIS and use of technology, drone surveys and space-based technologies and Earth observations are fairly mainstreamed. And we're looking forward to trying out more pilots and demonstrations, for example, using IoT-based solutions and artificial intelligence or blockchain. That would be more in terms of pilots and demonstrations, but we find feasible solutions, we will mainstream them. Going forward, yeah, you're right in terms of actual implementation. Either these could be part of the TORs of the major consultants like the design and supervision consultants or project management consultants, or we could have separate specific consultancy for mainstreaming GIS into our urban water projects or larger water resource projects. Yeah. Hope this helps. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate this section of the Q&A. There's more questions. I know we could go on a lot longer, but we do have to wrap up. I truly appreciate our participants, our speakers who are in Asia, specifically our speakers in Manila. You started out early this morning, and really appreciate you starting the day with us. And for us in the United States, we have people from California all the way through the East Coast to DC. So thank you all, the attendees, the participants, speakers. We really appreciate you all joining us today. And really learned a lot about these global procurement opportunities in regards to urban development and water management. We will be sharing these slides with all of you. They'll include the links that were mentioned and shared with you. So hopefully you find this all valuable. Please do expect to receive a survey from us. Your response to the survey is greatly appreciated. And we hope that you'll join us for the next 2 webinars. So the next one will actually be next week on August 18th on energy and transportation. In fact, one of the questions I saw come through was related to transportation opportunities. So I do hope that you will join us for that. And we all wish you all in Manila a wonderful day. And for those of us in the United States, have a fantastic evening. Thank you all. And please stay well and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.